So that's why we lose a lot of talent. So, if you look at all these test sides around the world, you have David Pocock, you have Kyle Godwin, Wallabies, they're all Zimbabweans who grew up here. Beast, obviously. Beast is Zimbabwean. We have maybe about 15 guys playing the English Premiership, and guys that played for Scotland, or that are playing for Scotland. We have the Japanese winger Matsushima. He's half Zimbabwean. So you have all these like guys that are not just decent rugby players, but they were considered the best in their positions. And so it follows that trend where after high school they have to go outside to get a good education and get the facilities, because we don't have a professional league in Zim. So the ones that remain behind play a club league, but it's not to the standard where it can nature a professional athlete.
I think the minute I stepped on a practice field for rugby, the calling happened.
An 8-year plan to be on the team, and I was in it within 2 years.
Don't wait until you are a pro to be a pro, right?
And I walk around with a rugby ball sometimes, and they're like, "What is this child on?"
It looks like it was heavy. Yeah.
It's up. It's not the option.
That's the first time I played like professional.
I'm making rugby money. How can I make money outside of it?
And there's two Scottish guys, and I said, "Oh, you're here for the movie."
That rugby is a game for all shapes and sizes, all cultural aspects.
He looked at me and he says, "You guys are awesome."
Grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Grow Rugby Show. My name is GiftTime Ibelu, and this is the show where we speak to people about the opportunities that they have found, created, or taken advantage of via rugby. Y'all, I have to apologize because I keep thinking that I can be consistent, and I've not, and so that is on me. All right. I appreciate you for taking the time to continue to listen, because I have not been doing my job. We got a lot going on. One of the biggest things that we have going on is that we announced the new location for the HBCU Rugby Classic and Music Festival for 2023, which will be taking place in Washington, D.C., hosted at Howard University, one of the premier HBCUs in the country. That's out of 119 HBCUs. Let it be known. All right. Let it be known. We're about to go wild with it. And then, of course, the other half of it, we've been working on GiftTime Media and Productions Agency. And right now, we're actually working a deal where we are creating new, amazing hype and highlight videos for individual people. Y'all, like, you need to get your highlight. Like, we good at this. All right. We are good at this. And you want to be able to get one, just go check out the website, gifttimeproductions.com/highlights, and go and sign up to be able to get your highlight video done off of what you've done for this summer, what you've done over the year. If you're a team, you need an introduction into your team. When people look you up, they need to know, oh my gosh, this is who we're going for. All right. This is the team we're going for. Let me go get some videos done. And don't just put clips together against a background music. Like, when it doesn't sync and it's just like actions, but they don't match, like, you don't want that. This is what we do. We make sure that we give you works of art that create real feelings. So definitely check it out. gifttimeproductions.com/highlights. HIGHLIGHTS, if you didn't know how to spell it before. But outside of that, it's been busy. We've been working on trying to keep everything together. It's a lot happening, but you know what? We got a good few weeks of guests coming up. So I got something for you, especially as the school year is about to begin. It's about to be very, very real. I'm excited as I don't know what. And today, we have an amazing guest for you today. This man has been in the rugby community, changing the game from the ground up. He is the founder of Kyros Sports. He is best known for his work with the Beast Foundation, working alongside his friend Tendai Mtawarira, aka the Beast out of the Springboks, Zimbabwe. He is the co-founder of Athstat. He is working with Rock Nation. He's worked with Super League. He's worked with national teams. And man, this man has been bringing it forever. Straight out of Zimbabwe by way of New Jersey. I want to introduce Kisset Chirengende. Man, this was somebody who I've been wanting to talk to for years. I've been following for years. One of the people that I emulate in wanting to be in sports marketing and hope I can get to his level. Guys, you guys are going to enjoy this. We talked about so much from his upbringing all the way through to where he is going in terms of tech and in terms of rugby development and what is happening across the board. This was a dream come true, like I said, conversation for me. So without further ado, I don't want to hold anything back. I'll introduce you to Kisset Chirengende. Check it out.
Grow rugby, 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 grow rugby.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of Grow Rugby. My name is GiftTime, and of course, we got another Super I, very I, and person P, VIIIP up in here. Kisset Chirengende. Did I get it right?
You got it, bro. You got it.
Man, let's go. Let's go. Look, I'm very excited about this one because look, I'm gonna let you know this. So whenever I had been starting to do rugby more and more in the media space, and it was actually a little bit before the Rugby World Cup, I was looking up sports marketers around because I wanted to get to understand the horizon. And your name came up actually first. I think I knew of you around 2018 as from Kyros Sports, and then all of a sudden, I just kept seeing that we had a lot of mutual people, and it was just like, "Yo, what's happening?" And we connected on LinkedIn, but I've been really impressed with what you've been doing in the U.S. and in Zimbabwe and South Africa simultaneously. So I didn't say it beforehand because you got to save it for the pod, but it was like I've really been impressed. So, Kisset, I want to thank you so much for coming on to the show.
No, thank you for having me, Gift. I'm a big fan, like I said, of your show. I'm a big fan of the way you are pushing the game. The big fan of how you promote the game even on LinkedIn and stuff. And I'm very excited to talk to you today.
Man, thank you so much. Well, look, brother, I always tell people right off the bat, look, I love a good superhero origin story. And right now, you're going to be the superhero. So I want to say, how did you get started with rugby?
That started in high school. My first year, freshman year, high school. I was kind of forced into it. I was a child kid and all that. So if you understand the sort of school structure in Zimbabwe, there's a bit of a seniority thing going on where the seniors are sort of like the root schools and all the youngsters kind of have to respect them. There's this whole respect situation going on. So I got to school, and in my second week, all the seniors were like, you can't go and play hockey. I wanted to play hockey for some reason. Field hockey.
We're talking about field hockey, not like ice hockey.
Field hockey, yeah. We don't have no ice in Zimbabwe, so yeah, definitely field hockey. I'm getting ready to go to the hockey field, and the seniors, say, nope, you're not going to play hockey. You're going to play rugby. And I was like, no, I'm not going to play rugby. I don't want to get injured. I don't want to get hurt. They're like, you have no choice. So long story short, I had no choice. I was forced to go there, but I just quickly fell in love with it, just like a lot of us do.
Of course.
And it just became life, man. My life has just revolved around rugby. Everything I sort of do kind of flows from rugby. And it's been a blessing, man. It's been a blessing.
Man, that's awesome. And it's interesting because Zimbabwe, South Africa, Zimbabwe. I say both because people know South Africa and then remember Zimbabwe afterwards. So I'm gonna say both, but I'm giving it to Zimbabwe. But within that region, we're especially in the States, everybody is all about like whenever you're starting rugby, starting at the youngest age and the culture of it in these areas. For me, I've looked at it and I'm like, is rugby the biggest sport, or how does one I guess initially enter into it? So for you, obviously the senior boys, they brought you in, but the culture of rugby in your area, how significant was it in comparison to maybe other sports?
Yeah, so most kids start in elementary school, and they start in what we call primary school.
Right.
And so they start a lot younger than I did. I just didn't get into it at that age for some reason. But yeah, there's a huge influence. And for those, maybe your listeners, Zimbabwe is right next to South Africa. It's an hour flight. But the culture is much bigger in South Africa. Obviously, they're the current world champions. And it's a big sport out there. In Zimbabwe, it's a big sport in all the sort of the private schools and mostly, some of the, I'd say 80% of the high schools, rugby is like the main sport. So it's like when I'm talking to Americans, I kind of compare it a little bit to how high school football is in Texas.
Oh, wow.
It's a little bit like that within the high school systems. You get like a huge crowd at games. Like last week, I was at a local school game, and there was a lot of people there. It's just a good atmosphere, and a lot of people like enjoy coming to watch it on the weekend. So there's a huge culture of it in Zimbabwe and in South Africa.
See, I like that, and it's good to know because I had always had this theory where one of rugby's biggest issues is that it's not a number one sport in enough places. So like in the Oceania area, Tonga, Samoa, Fiji, number one, New Zealand, number one. But then whenever you come into Australia, South Africa, I always made the assumption that, it lands somewhere between 3 and 6 as opposed to 1 and 3, because you have like cricket, soccer, netball, or basketball. Australia obviously has AFL, rugby league has overpassed it, such like that. So to understand exactly how the sport progresses through the world, especially in being in places that dominate, I always get interested to see how the actual local population interacts with the sport.
Yeah, I mean, you're quite right. So in South Africa, I would say it's probably second to soccer.
Mm-hmm.
And in Zimbabwe, it's also maybe second to soccer.
Right.
But if you go to high schools, it's the number one sport.
Really?
That's why I gave you that comparison with Texas high school football. But yeah, so definitely in high schools, rugby is like the main sport, and that's what dominates it. South Africa is even worse than Zen. Like it's ridiculous. They have their own channel. It's amazing to see. And some of my best years were playing schoolboy rugby, and if you were to give me an option, I would go and do my last 2 years of high school all over again.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
Is it one of those situations where you're just like, not only do I get to see the best of the best and get to push a competition, but I get to actually experience almost like its own international level of rugby, but I just get to have it more localized because everybody's so engaged in that high school moment.
So what are the questions? Sorry, I missed it.
Oh, so yeah, I was saying like the feeling like as a player in that moment, does it almost feel like you're playing at an international level? Except for obviously it's localized, but it's like, yo, I have all the hype. Like I got the stadiums full, the energy's in the air, the crispiness. And it's like, I get to see these guys who some are going to be some of the best in the world. And some, are going to go their own way. But I get a chance to be in that circle because it is it is congregated or built up at the most at that high school moment, that secondary school moment.
It definitely does, man. It definitely does. I'll tell you, like in my school, it was compulsory for every student to go and support the first team playing.
Wow.
So, so you have the whole school is kind of forced to do it, but they're not forced because they want to be there. It's the event where you want to be there. Everyone wants to be there, right? So it certainly feels like the atmosphere is special because these are people that you're with like 24/7 because we're mostly in boarding schools, right? So I was at a boarding school, so I was with these guys probably more than my parents, right? Like,
right.
Or my family. So, and then you get out there every Saturday, you're playing a big game, and the whole school is there to support. And then all the parents are there, and everyone out of town comes in to watch. It's a special feeling. So it's definitely, I mean, I wouldn't be able to say how it feels to play like Tier 1 international, but I think it quite matches it. Some of my friends who play Tier 1 international games certainly say that schoolboy rugby was some of their most precious times in Zimbabwe and in South Africa. So,
man, I love that. I love that. So, what happens next after that? So, obviously here, I mean, there's the individual clubs, obviously, and then most people go into the collegiate area and then continue on. Is the system similar within Zimbabwe with how people now move after secondary school?
Yeah, it's pretty much similar. So Zimbabwe, it's a little different because a lot of people, if they can afford it, leave for college or university elsewhere. They go to South Africa, they go to the UK, they go to the United States, they go to Australia and Canada. Those are the sort of the common landing spots. So that's why we lose a lot of talent. So, if you look at all these test sides around the world, you have David Pocock, you have Kyle Godwin, Wallabies, they're all Zimbabweans who grew up here. Beast, obviously. Beast is Zimbabwean. We have maybe about 15 guys playing the English Premiership, and guys that played for Scotland or that are playing for Scotland. We have the Japanese winger Matsushima. He's half Zimbabwean. So you have all these like guys that are not just decent rugby players, but they were considered the best in their positions. And so it follows that trend where after high school they have to go outside to get a good education and get the facilities because we don't have a professional league in Zim. So the ones that remain behind play club league, but it's not to the standard where it can nature a professional athlete. So you always find that we lose that talent to other countries.
So it kind of falls into that same problem that like Tonga, Fiji, Samoa fall into. The brain drain occurs very quickly just because size and opportunity is limited.
Yeah, it's similar, but I would say that those countries at least like keep churning out talent, right? So they'll have a decent national team because the guys that don't make the All Blacks or the Wallabies like still come back and play for Tonga or Fiji and make them a top 15 playing nation in the world still. Whereas Zimbabwe, like we're already a small population and not everyone plays rugby. So the ones that do play rugby and are good at it get lost in the system to other countries, or they stop playing altogether, and then our national team sort of suffers. So it is similar, but a little different in the fact that Fiji and Samoa do a good job of sort of then getting the ones that don't make it to the tier 1 sides. Well, I mean, they're also tier 1, but the very top sides.
I feel that. So for you, whenever you got done playing, did you end up going overseas for college or did you end up staying?
Yeah, so I left when I was 19. I went to the UK to study and I was playing rugby there. Was trying to make it there, didn't work out, and just sort of then started playing in the sort of semi-pro leagues in National 1, National 2, and then eventually stopped. And then moved into the space that I'm in now, which is sports marketing, which is something that you do as well. So yeah, so
go into that. We're building the story over here.
I got you. Yeah. So that was pretty much my journey.
Yeah. You know, when your time in the UK, obviously, what did you think added for you in that one versus what you were getting, obviously, in Zimbabwe? Again, obviously, different ages, so you have those maturity things. But again, you're within a culture that knows rugby, that experiences rugby very consistently. So whenever you went to the UK and took that experience level, and I'm, from, eyes view, the style of rugby played, at least from a core standpoint, from a surface standpoint, that's played in England feels different than the perspective of rugby played in Zimbabwe. What did you feel like you took, both on and off the pitch, whenever you went to the UK and started playing a little bit up there?
I think the main difference for me was just how specialized some of the coaching was. In Zimbabwe, I didn't really get anyone. I was playing hooker, front row. I didn't have a specialist like throwing coach. I didn't have a specialist scrummaging coach. And when I got there, those are some of the elements that got improved really quickly because I had just these guys that focused on those skill positions. That was one big change, I think. But what also like sort of hit me hard was just the culture shock. It was cold.
Yeah.
Now it's not. Yeah. And I was now when I then moved to the States, I then found out that the United Kingdom is not as cold, but it rains all the time. It's always gloomy, right? So
right.
That was
I feel like that's the mixture there. Like you feel your coldness more because of the fact that you don't get enough sun, as opposed to like here, like you get that below zero, which I don't know how anybody lives in that. I don't get it. But at least there's like some sun that goes along with it for a little bit, where you're just like, okay, maybe I can feel a little bit of energy here as I shake myself back to warmth. Right.
That was exactly it. So, but yeah, man, I had a good time there. Didn't feel like I was gonna live there the rest of my life, but I spent most of my 20s there, and then I moved back home to Zim.
Nice. So, again, as you're taking in that and you come back home, like this is where it becomes very interesting and where it goes into sports market, because I'm about to sit on this one for a minute. So, bear with me. All right. We going in because I love what has been going on, because in reality, I feel like it's very rare within the rugby community from my experience and perspective, not just in the US, but watching it as a global entity outside of a union. What was it that caught your attention about entering into the sports marketing arena, especially with rugby? Before you answer, I know for me, I've always been attached to sports since I was a kid, whether playing football, American football, or whenever it rose into rugby or baseball, soccer. There's always that attachment there for all time. But when it came to with rugby, there was like a hole that I could see in it, and it was like, I don't know why this hole hasn't really been filled, but I feel like there's something here with it. And I think, especially, I'm gonna say, as Africans, there is a notorious characteristic that we share, and I know, especially with Nigerians, that the impossible seems possible because of the fact that everything can be we're used to there being a pushback in some way, shape, or form. So this is a long way of me going back saying, what was it that initially caught your eyes about wanting to do sports marketing when you got back to Zimbabwe?
Well, I think initially, so I went to school and I did sport business management. So that was my major.
Right.
Initially, I wanted to be an agent, and then I quickly sort of figured out that it's probably not for me. It didn't suit with my personality in terms of you gotta be ruthless, you gotta be, and they do a fantastic job for the athlete. They look out for the athlete. So
Right.
I probably figured out that space wasn't for me, but I like the idea of promoting the game and propelling it to new heights. And I'm a big football fan as well, and I just sort of saw what the NFL was doing and college football was doing, and I'm like, uh, why doesn't rugby like sort of like push the product the way the American sporting landscape does? So that was part of the motivation on my end, and some of the things that we then did in our journey was inspired by sort of what the NFL is doing. Taking games to London, and obviously this year they're taking games to Germany, and they're already sold out. That kind of stuff. So part of the journey was inspired by that in terms of just bringing some of the innovation that's happening in other sport codes and other leagues into and experimenting them in the rugby space. And that's an ongoing journey. It's not something that because our systems are sort of traditional, and certain people like the sport as it is. They say that they like the values and they want to keep them that way. So it's a little harder it's going to take a bit more time to change everyone's mindset and shift sort of the culture to where you need to shift it to. So it's just a work in progress.
Yeah. No, I I agree with you in the fullest way when it comes to that.
You know what's up.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting because I find it to be both its strength and its weakness. Particularly, traditionalism has its place. Where it creates at least a core standard of what you want to expect from a sport. It creates at least something to be able to as a guiding light. But whenever it comes into that point where it's like you don't want to change or adjust despite the fact that the times have now moved past certain elements of it, whether from a point of just how it's presented language wise to like something even as minute as how the on-field presentation can be. I've found it very interesting, the mindset that goes with rugby community people on the traditional elements of rugby. For you, when you got started, did you work with an organization, or were you just like, look, I'm gonna go independent and utilize my friends and family and tap into it? Or
maybe just to backpedal a little bit. So obviously, I look back at Zim and I didn't see anyone in that space. So that motivated. And then coming back to your question, motivated me to start my own company, which is Kyros Sports, and started that in the UK. But I wasn't getting a lot of traction because just the UK is a small closed shop. It's just hard to penetrate into. Didn't have the contacts to be able to make any sort of real impact. So when I moved back home, just started building on just developing that business model and making it better. Few bumps along the way, but then we started getting a few breaks here and there. 2014, brought in John Mitchell, who's the ex-England coach and ex-All Black coach. He's coaching Japan now and is with Wasps, a really good friend of mine. So we did an event around sports marketing in Zim. So that was sort of our first sort of real foray into the sports marketing landscape, because I had to go to brands and sort of get them to come and sponsor the event, and then obviously to pay for the thing that we were doing, and then engage the fan base to be able to interact with the product. So that was sort of our first thing, and then we would then start building it off from there.
Man, dude, I love that. because I know for me, it's taken ironically a long time to get to the point of doing the sports marketing, because again, it was the same thing. It was like, I see this space, I see that it was open, but and then it goes like, I don't understand why nobody has really fully filled it. Which, you know, you always kind of step back and you're like, what am I missing in this, right? So I always talk about like where I started from, and it was just like, I started it as initially a blog, then it became video, then streaming, and then event creation. But all of it was like, every one of these pieces have their own unique, you know, job and purpose, but there's always something that relies more on the other. So like in doing the streaming, it was like, oh man, I like it, but we still need to get brands involved, which I need to now convince the brands to recognize that rugby is still a viable thing, but I need to also like prove that this event works or this thing functions. And so it's just like this constant cycle until you like you raise and learn, and a lot of costs that go into it to get to
and you know, you could send like 100 emails and, you know, get one back, and the one is saying no. So
exactly.
Yeah, so that I totally feel you on that, but it's something that you gotta constantly, like, you know, keep at it, because you know, brands also, like, you know, just have, you know, are skeptical of new products, of new sports, of new properties to get involved in. So it's just a matter of keep knocking and try and reach like a rugby person in there, and see how they go.
No, I agree. And I think it's helped now. I don't think it would have been as possible if I tried to do this, or to try and do this, not even just me, but to try and do this more at the beginning when I started versus now, because one, maturity of the game, and then the other, just you have the backup. Like there's a credibility that's been developed over time, right?
Yeah.
For you, you know, when you're now dealing with the brand or dealing with the events, actually, you know what? Let me actually reshape the question this way. Developing your relationships, what was that process for you like? Because I know for me, it's been, I honestly didn't realize I had relationships until the moment when I started needing relationships. So before it's just, hey, it's just people I just keep meeting around and, hey, cool, this and that, but I don't really know. Sometimes I didn't even know what people did. Yeah, honestly, I just to a point, I still don't know what people do all the time. But it'll just be like, oh, wait, you have access to this? Yo, okay, maybe I can help on this, and go like that. For you, wow. But for you, like, how's that process been proceeding in developing those relationships, and then and finding that balance between business and personal?
So I think for me, it's just my personality. So I think relationships is my strength. I love people. I love interacting with people. I love good people, not just people. I love like where I see good where I see good people that are like-minded and that are doing good things. It's just that just hits home for me. So for me, it was just a matter of just being myself, and for people, to allow people to see my heart and see that, you know, this guy is about this and he's genuine about it, right? And then you sort of develop the relationships that way, and for people to know that you're not just after something from them. You know, you're there to add value. So in the context of business, I don't really call brand sponsors that we work with, because sponsorship kind of denotes like begging and asking for something,
right?
A donation. And for me, it's not a donation. We're not there with a begging bowl. We are there to add value. So we are partners. You know, you give us the funding, we're gonna give you like a ton of marketing mileage. We're gonna help your business. We're gonna heighten your brand visibility through what we do. We're gonna spread the message of that brand to our sector or our segment, or our fan base or our class. So for me, it's a partnership, and we give them value. They give us the funding, and everyone is happy. So if you look at it that way, you always make sure that the brand is happy, the brand gets the return on investment from what they put in, and that's been the sort of the journey and sort of the outlook on it.
I love that because it's something that I had been feeling the same, and it's one of the things that I've had a really big issue with how I'm again the rugby community kind of goes about funding, because whenever you speak to the average team or the average union, it always is in the spoke of, hey, why don't we just go to the so-and-so brand and give them this packet, and then they give us money, and then we put stuff on our jerseys, and then it's like, hey, it's all equal. And it's like, guys, that doesn't even make sense. Y'all don't even got spectators. Like, why would this even add anything if you're not facilitating it more, you know?
Right. That's true. Totally true. Yeah.
So it's going back to kind of what we were talking about, like the traditionalism. That's one of those big traditional elements that have always blown my mind on that, because the concept that you said is right, like partnership. There's a reason why it's a partnership. You know, it is an equitable transaction between two sides being able to grow and gain from both. One might be a funding partner, the other might be, is the product partner, the other might be XYZ, yada, yada, yada. But it all works in contribution to a single goal of lifting everybody's platform, right?
Right. Let me throw something at you. Like how are you finding it? Because you're doing great work. Like I said before when we're talking before the show, I'm a huge fan of your work, and it's like some of the stuff that you're putting out, especially promoting the historically Black colleges and the program that you guys have started there. How tough is those conversations been for you in terms of getting the buy-in from the brands? Because obviously you need a lot of funding to do this show. You're taking time out from spending with your family, and then the other programs that you're trying to get off the ground.
Yeah, so it's been really interesting in that. So for most of this HBC Rugby Classic has been self-funded, right? And when it came to, and this is where I get a little bit lost in it, because I don't know, every region has a different characteristic with it. So in Louisiana, I had a lot of help from a ground level standpoint in terms of like people piquing interest, but not a lot of financial interest. That one was a different one to be able to present. And I don't know if it was because it was my own lack of knowledge on how to present it, or it was the fact that, a lot of it is people want to see you prove it first and then show. So it has improved each year. The only one that was kind of went a little bit backwards was 2021, but that's pandemic. What didn't I say? I want to blame the pandemic. But 2019, I saw an increase from 2018. And then at least the interest from an overall standpoint, 2021 and 2022, even though it didn't happen, started to develop better inclination, better interest in wanting to be involved. But again, it had to start with that, like, you have to prove it that it works as a concept. So I'm more happy that I had enough friends that were willing to do a lot of cheap to free labor to make it happen.
I got you. Thank God for friends, huh?
My goodness, like it goes back again. You don't know the relationships that you have until like you realize you need relationships, and then you're like, wait, like you do like real stuff. Hold up. But you know, it was like, oh, I could stop. You know, we could be, you know, messing around, just talking shit and not doing anything.
Right. Absolutely.
But yeah, it's been a real journey. It's been a real journey. This year, I'm very much excited because there's a lot of elements that are different. Namely, obviously, location change, which is both. I'm excited and I'm also a little sad because I wanted it for Louisiana, but I also realized that maybe you need to create a different platform because Baton Rouge is a little bit of a small town in comparison. So even in just that, like saying DC versus Baton Rouge feels like it gets a whole different perception response to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the market counts. Yeah,
exactly. You know, so you know, what was your first event like? Whenever your first put together event like?
Man, it didn't go as badly as it should have. Thankfully, like I said, like you said, you know, I had a lot of people helping, plugging the holes behind the scenes. So a lot of the people that came in were like, "Oh, what a wonderful event!" Right?
Right.
But that's because there's people behind the scenes that are plugging the holes and just, you know, making sure that the train keeps moving. But there was a lot of things going wrong. There was a lot of things going wrong. You know, just this and that, you know, and obviously money is never enough.
No, yeah.
So the first event was memorable. I was just happy when it was done, bro. Like I'm like, people should just leave now, you know, just get done, over and done with, and people should just go, you know.
Yes.
So when it's done, I'm like, phew, I can rest now, I can sleep. But it was good, man. It was a good learning curve. We had fun doing it. And then the subsequent ones afterwards, where I can't say they were easier. I mean, the learnings, obviously, the learning journey got shorter, but up events is never easy. So especially if they get big. So our first one was in 2014, and then 2016 we had our first Super Rugby game that we hosted in Zim.
Wow!
So that was the first Super Rugby game outside of the territories, New Zealand, South Africa, Australia. So, and you know, we had over 20,000 people in the stadium. And it was expensive to put it up, but also at the same time, we didn't make a loss, which was good. Like the first event.
Cheers to that.
Yeah. So really, really, really grateful because you know, we're in the black and things just worked out. And thankfully, thank God, everything came together and people attended and paid, and that enabled us to sort of cover the shortfalls and come out with a decent sized profit. So which was good.
Man, that's really good. Like I always like that. I love that. I know from my first event, whenever the first HBC Rugby Classic, the whole process was so stressful getting to it. Like it literally was down to the last second. I didn't make any money off of it. I just was like, yo, I need to pull off this event. My pride is on the line of being able to pull this
right.
But I'm not gonna lie. Like after the event, like I think it was 2 days after the event, lost my eyesight for a week. I was went blind. I had to just like sit down and just do nothing because it was just like, let me figure out life again.
Dude, people have no idea what these events do to you. When was your first one? When
2018. 2018.
Okay.
So
nice.
Yeah, it was well. I always say this though. After you do these events and do the whole process, and I want to know on your perspective, how much do you look at concerts and sporting events in a different light. Like when you talk about like watching the NFL, or we watch one of these big concerts, whether it's like a Rolling Loud or any one of these. Do you now see the game different? Do you see it differently than you did before you were started doing sports marketing versus now? Or do you kind of like, oh, I was kind of always looking for that? Because it changed for me.
I definitely, it's changed the way I look at it. If an event is not put together as as expected, I sympathize because I know the work that's going in.
Yeah,
and that's the man in the arena, right? So I don't criticize
facts
as I did. I know the struggle, so I appreciate what people are trying to do and the magnitude of the work that they're putting up. So yeah, definitely look at it differently now. And just when it's a well put like event, like how the NFL, the Super Bowl is a machine, like you just sort of like have a great appreciation of that and be like, I just want to get to that level. It's inspiring. But also at the same time, those that are, and it just like spurs you on. But also at the same time, those that are on the entry level that are starting out and making mistakes, and the event is, and I'm at an event and maybe I'm not getting my drinks on time, or there's a long line, or there's I'm certainly more sympathetic because I know people are trying to do something on, and money's never enough, and manpower is never enough. So so I'm more appreciative of those facts.
Yeah, I it was weird to me because the other part that kind of caught me was the accessibility of people. And what I mean by that is when I initially, like, I'll say before doing an event, like trying to get an artist, in my mind, I would think, oh man, to get a music artist, especially a mid-tier high-end music artist, you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to get them to do, whatever moment. It's like it's so far and wide above. But then I started doing it, and I was like, hold up, these people are really easy to get access to. Maybe more so now than before, but right now, really easy to get access. And then the costs are not as high as I thought. Like, I'm thinking you're breaking ground, and so kind of into that effect, it changed the way even that I look at celebrity, because now it's like I see well-known people, but now it's like the distance doesn't feel so big. Like you've done Super Rugby now, and you've done all these big events, and you know how people react to what we call stars, But for you now, has your perspective on stars and the access points changed? Because now, I mean, you're there.
I want to say, definitely. And I want to say it's probably a good and bad thing, because now I got so used to being in those circles, and I probably don't appreciate how elite those talents are, or until people just mob us. Maybe I'm with that person and people are like going crazy about them, and I'm like, oh yeah, they're a big deal.
There are something, right?
They're a big deal, right? So I think, because in my philosophy is we always have to give people their dues, right? If someone has achieved something, you've got to, they put in the work. You gotta respect them. They've earned your respect. They've earned, all that that popularity that comes with it, all the kudos or whatever it is. And so to answer your question, that definitely is the case now, especially with rugby players. Like, there's no one that'll come and I'm starstruck, because I probably have worked with them. in one shape or another, or I've seen maybe bigger stars, and been around them a lot. But that's not to minimize their talent. So I always try and remind myself, these guys are just, because I've also seen it firsthand how hard they work, and what it's taken for them to reach like that level of eliteness, right? So yeah, it's to answer your question. I think that's inevitable. Human beings, we tend to be a little familiar if we get into those surroundings a lot. But I always try and remind myself that these guys are special. Not a lot of people can do what they do. So yeah,
right.
Keep it.
That's real. I remember for the 2019 Rugby World Cup, and obviously having the media access passes to it was nice.
Were you there? Were you in talk?
I was. Man, I did a whole trip. I was between Southeast Asia and then Japan. Like I was in Japan, but I was only in Japan I was only there for the what do you call it? The play-in games. I didn't stay for the playoffs because by that point I'd been in Asia for 2 months, and so I was like, I just let me just get these American games and just enjoy. But
yeah,
that was by far one of the best run events I've ever experienced in my life, and I think it's a cultural thing.
Yeah. I had so much fun. It was probably the most intriguing country I've visited. Like everything is clean, everyone is clean, everyone is polite, and just the way they supported the teams that had nothing to do with Japan. Like they just adopted countries. Like it was crazy, man.
It was
the energy.
wild.
Yeah. So I enjoy Japan. I mean, I did England in 2015.
Yeah,
it was nothing compared to Japan in 2019. Japan was special.
It set a different standard because I mean, it was my first Rugby World Cup, but I can tell the difference between whenever you're like on the bus and then you have just the volunteers, waving you off and being like, "Hey, yo!" and you got everybody so accessible, or like you talk about the fans adopting. We saw that at the Australia-Wales game, and I'm like, hold up, you guys are Welsh or Australia fans? Like, wait, hold up, why?
Dude, they just got into it. They just got
in. It was amazing, bro. I got so much great footage from that. That was dope. Like, I feel bad for this Paris one because you have a standard now that is set. Like, there's a reason why it made as much money as that it did, because Japan had that was a cultural standard, though. Yeah.
But you know what it is? So I went to the best rugby game I've been to, and I've been to many. Best rugby game I've been to was in March. Grand Slam final, England versus France in Paris. Bro, like the level of where they produced the game from a fan engagement and was similar to how the NBA produces the NBA games. And for me, I was proud because the crowd was getting involved in naming the team sheet. When the announcer or the stadium announcer would name the first name, and then the crowd would name, I just said goosebumps, and the crowd would just shout the last name. And the lighting was crazy because French people like to play rugby like late at night. The game kicked off at 9 p.m. Who does that? But the lighting, the ambiance was amazing, right? So I say that to say, I know Japan was like phenomenal, but I think France, like out of all
it's
the
gonna be a
countries,
show.
They're gonna put up a show. They're gonna put up a show.
That's what I want. I love hearing it. And you know what? It doesn't surprise me that France is like that because of what they've done with the URC and Pro 14, which I don't know why I feel like that league does not get talked about enough on how progressively economical and entertaining it legitimately is. And it might just be because it's a language barrier, because it's French.
Yeah,
but
maybe. Oh, you mean the top 14? Yeah, the top 14.
Yeah, top 14, not Pro 14. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Phenomenally. And the Pro D2 is equally as competitive. Amazing.
Exactly. Like, I don't understand why that one's not copied more. Like, this is the lack of copycat leagueness bothers me a lot in rugby, because when you have something good like that and you know it's entertaining, and this is literally what is working in almost every other sport, and it works even better probably within rugby, why not just continue to repeat that? Why is it only in isolated situations?
You shorten the learning journey. You're right. Just pick what's good and implement that.
Man. So I wanted to. I didn't want to get it too lost on some of the other stuff. Man, we're gonna talk more in after even this podcast and in the future, because it's really relieving to be able to have a person who understands it fully back to back. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Beast Foundation and Athstat a little bit for you, because we promote here. All right. Press it.
Our brother.
So first off, with the Beast Foundation, obviously the Beast, Tendai, freaking 2019 champion, one of the best marketed right now rugby players, between him, Morrow. No, that's about it. That's all I'm calling it. Him, the Beast, and Morrow, Itoji. Only ones that I feel are legitimately being marketed, ironically, both in association with Rock Nation. So it's like,
say something.
How did you first get involved with Tendai, and how did it lead to where you were being able to work on his nonprofit?
So we grew up together in Zimbabwe, played against each other since we were 11. And we went to different schools that were rival rugby schools. So we had a little fun, like trying to take each other out. He was playing number 8 then, and I would alternate between loose forward and hooker. And in my last year of high school as a senior, I was on the side of the scrum. So he was always bigger than everyone else, and he had these trademark pickups from the base. And I remember this one game, my coach said, "Don't do anything else. Your job is to make sure that Beast does not go over the gain line." So from the 8-man pickups. So you can imagine how long that afternoon was. But so we've come a long way. He's obviously he was always special in the way he trained and his mindset. They were good players, really good players, some better than him in high school. And we all wanted to go pro, but maybe didn't actually believe we could. He did. His mentality was like, this is what I want to do. I want to be the best in the world. And he did that, albeit in a position he didn't think he was going to play. So, fast forward to when he went to the Sharks, he played 2-3 years in the loose forwards, and then he moved to the front row, and then obviously made the Springboks and all of that. So yeah, we've been buddies for a while. We're business partners, and when he retired, so before he retired, when he was playing, we were doing some nonprofit stuff through Kyros Sports, because we do a lot of nonprofit stuff. And he would come to Zim maybe 3 times a year, and we'll do stuff. So when he retired, we decided, he decided, we want to form the Beast Foundation, formalize and give back, because his journey is sort of unique, in the sense that he became the first Black player in the Springbok team to a consistent starter, right? The first Black player to get 50 caps, first Black player to reach 100, obviously. And like he's got so many records, right? Before that, I think Black players used to get to like 8 caps and 8 appearances, and then they're out of the team because the environment wasn't always like easy for
Right.
players of color. But because he was just mentally strong, he didn't care, bro. He just, he had eye on the prize, tunnel vision, it always calls it,
Makes
So-
sense. I mean, you've been doing this since you're a kid, especially like in the concept of just being able to be like, yeah, I'm going to get to the next level. Not I hope to, not I wish to. It will happen. So whenever you've been doing that from birth, what is it whenever you're now there and it's like, I'm here. How am I not going to keep pushing this level more and more?
Right, because it's proved, right? So that's how it started, and the BIS Foundation has been, remarkable. We are doing some exciting work that's on his heart and my heart. It's something that we enjoy, genuinely enjoy, like just helping kids like navigate some of these decisions. Not only in sport, like we're just using rugby as a tool. We're using basketball as a tool because we have basketball boot camps in partnership with the NBA. We're using education as a tool. We want to raise up the next next leaders, make our people confident, make our people know that it doesn't matter what your background is, you can achieve anything. So
no, I love that, especially because in this era, and I'm pushed, whether rugby or not, obviously this is an era where you have the most probably freedom to create and monetize than any time in history. I don't think that's even debatable. But a lot of it comes back to the concern of access, and at least now, especially with the rise of cell phones, because I know during that our wired telephone days, phone access was the absolute trashiest worst. But now that you see this like cell phone rise, and now the kids have the access, the kids are like, who am I acting the old person? Everybody's getting access into.
old man, bro. You just expose yourself.
I'm having to come into this realization. I'm like, oh, wait, this is the age that you don't feel it. We'll talk about it later on the 30s, on how this is they've been lying to us on how old 30 feels.
Right.
Oh
man.
But like, we have that, and it's being able to empower these kids to be able to like shift it up, especially since they're so much more digitally native than we are, even though, we were half and half and we're pretty dope with it. But, they're more digitally native than we are. And it's letting them know you can do more than what's limited by your proximity.
Yeah. Oh, that's it, man. That's it.
And I love it. All right, man. And then I want to hear about Athstat, because I have been seeing Athstat partnerships popping up everywhere. Your influencer marketing has been on point, because I was like, who is Athstat, and where do they come from, and how are they connecting with everybody? Until you told me that it was you, not a clue. I was just like, yo, all right, they know the game. I was like, these people know the game. Jump into this while it's still hot. Now I know the genius.
I appreciate the kind words, bro. It's behind the hood. It's a lot of pushing, a lot of hard work, but it's phenomenal. It's been a 2-year journey. So I'm a co-founder with one of my partners who's based in DC, and we just met up at a rugby game, MLR game in 2020 at Old Glory game, and he's also from Zimbabwe, but he has a really successful company that does analytics for the US government and all of that. So he's like, hey, man, I have these tools, this infrastructure. I love sport. One we combine and just, do something magical, special. And so we're a bootstrap startup, pretty much self-funded by me and my partner, and we then COVID hit, and then we just helped some of the young kids that had lost their internships because of COVID, and we got them together. We started building out this tech, and we've been improving the tech, and now it's like at a stage where we're ready to go to market, and we've been in the market. Now we're partnering with different sports properties, and it's not just rugby. We do a whole lot of other sports: lacrosse, football, soccer, field hockey, basketball. We do anything. So that's been the journey. It's exciting. We're building it out, and we want a whole lot more people to come and join the Athstat family. So yeah, pretty exciting times.
Has it felt different being in the tech space versus just in the sports marketing? Because it's obviously this is a field that's widening, and finding ways into it is the barrier is lower, but it is still one of the most. It's new Wall Street in a lot of senses. So for you in this process, has there been like a worry about how much goes into developing tech now as opposed to just events and marketing and sports? Because
yeah, absolutely, man. Like I tell my team that I do not want to hear about coding. It's too much in my head. Don't tell him. Don't talk to me about code. Don't tell me about numbers. Don't tell me about code. So my partner deals with the technical stuff. I deal with the marketing and the business development. That's more my thing.
Word.
I know what's going on. I do attend the meetings and I look at it, just try, and I'm like, no, man. Like it's a lot of work that they do. Really like amazing, intelligent, like smart people.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's not for me, man. It's not for me. So
we all have our places.
Right.
I'm right there with you.
Right
there with you. There was once upon a time where my ego would be like, yo, I'm going to go and sit down and do these numbers. That ego died.
Right.
All right. I'm like, look, man, I am a communications guy. All right?
That's one thing they were right about the 30s, right? Like you find your lane, you stick to it. You stick to it.
Facts. This is no truer statement has been said than that.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
No.
So yeah, it's fun. It's fun seeing it grow, and we're looking forward to seeing where it lands.
Oh man, I see a bright future for it, especially as it continues to delve into these emerging sports that are just popping more and more so now, with everything considering. Kisset, man, I want to tell you.
I said I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Yeah. But I want to tell you, I super appreciate you coming through, just telling the story, being able to do this. Like it's been great. I want to ask, where can people find you? Find whether Athstat, Beast Foundation, Kyros Sports. Yo, drop them all so people know how to be able to utilize and access you, brother.
Yeah. So Kyros Sports is at Kyros Sports, 2 S's in the middle. So Kyros at Sports. And then the Beast Foundation is on Twitter is at Beast.org, Beast.org. And it's the beastfoundation.org on the website. And Athstat is at athstat.com. So, and it's at Athstat on all social platforms. But yeah, man, I appreciate you inviting me to your space. You communicate well. I wish I had your talent. But
I wish I had your talent.
But hey, the good thing is we can mesh them and create a big, powerful thing, right? So, but yeah, thank you for all you do, man. Even for our people, and for the game in general. So, anything we can do to support that, just let us know.
Absolutely the same. The feeling is 100% mutual, brother. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to do a part 2 on this because I feel like there was so much more that we could have talked about that I think does volumes. Another time. We can't give them all at once.
No, you can't. Another time. But yeah, always up for it. Just hit me up.
Kisset, I want to thank you so much for just being willing to do this. This was a great conversation. Can't wait to do it again. And y'all, I hope you guys enjoyed it just as much. Please take the time to check out some of our other podcasts. We had Daniel DeValier of Howard Rugby last time, and then we talked to Diane Johnson as well, youth health guru. And we have so many other people that have been on here, from Nia Tapper, Colby Melfi, Chetta Amba, Michael Feely, Tozan Tutatanwe, Farrah Douglas, Maria Thomas of Trinidad and Tobago. People all around the world. We want to be able to make sure that we are highlighting the opportunities taken advantage in all facets of this game, y'all. But I absolutely appreciate you guys, and I hope that you know that I hope that you are happy, that you are healthy, and most importantly, that you are highly favored. Until next time, cheers.